Okay, so in this chapter, we're going to talk about citing sources in your speech. Excuse me, I'm a little bit under the weather, so I have the sniffles. Um, this chapter is not very long. It's a really short chapter, but it's still really important to your credibility in this class and in the future. So we're going to talk about a whole lot of different things in a very short period of time. Key source information, which is oral citations, establishing trustworthiness, avoiding mechanical delivery, the different types of sources, how to cite in your presentation aids, properly citing the different kinds of sources, so facts, statistics, summarizations, paraphrased, and quoted information. So the first thing is key source information. This is an oral citation. So you have to physically say where you got the source from, especially to get credit on your speech, but just because this helps you from ever being accused of plagiarism. So that's not just in this class. This is kind of something that can spill over into the rest of your life. Whenever you get a job and you have to give a presentation, if you did not physically collect the data yourself, then you need to report who did physically collect that data, and you need to give them credit because that was their hard work that they did. This is also where you'll get credit in your speech. So you have to cite it in your speech and put it on your bibliography. So if you put it, you cite it in your speech but you don't put it on your bibliography, you don't get credit. If you don't cite it in your speech, but you put it on your bibliography, you don't get credit. And there are two different places that you get credit for citations. So make sure that you're doing it in both places. Sometimes I'll have students cite a source twice in their speech, and then they never put it on their bibliography. Or they cite a source twice in their speech, and they have 4 sources on their bibliography. You don't get credit for that. You have to do it in both places. So make sure that you are understanding how to do that in both places. Okay, so you want to make sure that your source is trustworthy. You want to make sure that your audience knows that you are credible and where you're getting your information from is credible. So you want to check your source's reliability. This is the level of trust that we have in your source. So if you're citing Wikipedia, we're probably not going to trust you or your source. A lot of times .org, .gov, .edu, those kind of websites are very reliable. Typically we will trust books, journal articles, because all of those things have been reviewed by someone. It's not just something that you can throw up on the internet or something you can just publish in a magazine, right? Because we have freedom of press, we can print whatever we want in a magazine, as opposed to a journal article that's going to check and make sure that you're reliable and that your information is correct. A source qualifier is when you actually state in your speech why we should trust that. I would not recommend using source qualifiers in your informative speech because it's such a short speech and you're going to realize the time flies by. 3 to 5 minutes is so quick and all of a sudden you're going to be out of time for your speech. So you want to make sure that you're using that time effectively. But in a source qualifier, an example of that, whenever I presented on my thesis was over marriage. So a lot of my sources were out of psychological journals, which is not necessarily communication studies, which is what my degree is in. So I had to qualify why I was using psychological journals as opposed to communications journals, which I use both of them, but whenever I use a psychological journal, I had to qualify that and I had to tell my audience why I chose that particular journal or that particular method of research. Okay, you want to avoid mechanical delivery. This can be really difficult for some students because they want to say the same thing over and over each time they quote something or each time they offer a statistic to something. So you can do this by varying the wording. You can say according to, as reported by, and the words of, or you can lead with the claim. So you can state whatever. Leading with a claim means stating whatever your statistic is first. So saying 16% of girls in the state of Texas get pregnant by the age of 18. This is reported in a study done by the CDC in 2016 over why the pregnancy rate in Texas is so high. Either way you do it, make sure that you vary it each time. So you can one time say according to, then the next time lead with the claim, then the next time as reported by. Get creative with it. Use your imagination as to how to avoid the mechanical delivery in your speech. Okay, so here's kind of an overview of the different types of sources. Most of us know what all of these things are. I will tell you, be careful with blogs. If you use a blog, typically it's not trusted. There's another place that talks about social networking sites. Be careful about using any of these because these are things that people can just print. It doesn't have to be reliable. It doesn't have to be verified. It doesn't have to have any kind of ethical background to it. It's just whatever that person wants to write, whatever that person wants to say. So be careful with that. Excuse me. Everything else is typically very reliable. Be careful with things like television programs. Make sure that you're getting all sides of the story. So as I mentioned in another PowerPoint, you can watch CNN, Fox, and ABC and get different stories from all three. So make sure that whatever it is that you are quoting or you're citing, that it's reliable and that it's encompasses the entire story and not just one side of the story, a conservative side or a liberal side, whatever that may be. Okay, so citing in your presentation aids is very important. So if you are putting a graph or a chart or something that you got from somewhere else, you want to make sure that you're giving credit to that on your PowerPoint or on your Prezi, whatever it is that you're using. So you could do that in a number of ways. You can use the copyright symbol. So this chart that I have on here is from the CDC. So I have the copyright symbol at CDC, or you can copyright Center for Disease Control, or you can use a full citation. Typically, a copyright symbol takes up less room. Sometimes the graphs or statistics or facts will have it already on there. I highly recommend using graphs in your presentation aid because it gives more for your audience to draw from, so they can see what you're talking about, they can see where you're coming from, as opposed to just hearing these high numbers that you're saying. So saying 66,800 teen births are repeat births doesn't really break it down as to seeing that 57,200 girls are having 2 babies by the time they turn 19, right? That's a shocking statistic, and to see it is a lot more than to just hear it. So make sure that you cite it in both places, orally and on your presentation. So you could do that, again, copyright symbol or using a full citation, and there's an example of both of those. Okay, so on page 163 of your book, there is this little graph there that gives you examples of how to cite something. So it breaks it down with the type of supporting material and then the sample oral citation. So there are examples for examples, stories, testimony, facts, and statistics. So if you have any questions on how to vary your wording or what can I say to make things a little bit different, here is what you can do. I recommend using a variety of different sources. So don't just use online statistics. Don't just use testimonies. Vary it. Use a little bit of everything because that makes you seem more credible. It makes it look like you did more work, like you worked extra hard to make sure that you covered all your bases. And this is going to make you more successful not only in this course, but in the future. Okay, so if you have any questions, please feel free to ask. Contact me during my office hours, send me an email. Let me know if you want to set up a time to talk on the phone. I completely understand. I know these chapters are really short, but they can also be really confusing. So if you have any questions, just let me know.